Hello? Oh, screw the Transformers. The best toys were at the bottom of the toy box. Grab your nuts and bolts and join us as we discuss the best toys from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I'm Screwhead.
And I'm Avon Fox.
And tonight we're going to discuss the Nobots. And tonight we're going to be talking about not Gobots, Nobots.
Nobots.
All right, man. So, I'm assuming we said Gobots at the beginning of the show, and I'm assuming everybody's going to be thinking that we're actually talking about the much beloved, better than Transformers, greatest mode-changing robots of all time, the Gobots.
All time.
All time. Hands down.
Tell it on the mountain.
Just leave your comments below telling me how much I suck for saying that. But I stand by it. But so the Gobots, came out in 1983, and people thought we were going to be talking about Gobots tonight, but we're not. We're going to be talking about the Nobots.
The Nobots.
The Nobots. And we'll go into that a little bit as we go in the show, but essentially it's everything that was not a mode-changing robot that had Gobots slapped on it.
All that crap you got in your stocking from Aunt and Bertha, who had no idea what to buy you, but it had the word Gobots on it, so she bought it for you.
So she
that
bought
stuff.
It for you. That stuff.
Yeah.
The stuff you didn't really want, but you still got it anyway. That stuff.
Nope. Yep.
You know, when you went to the birthday party and had Gobots, and there was a Gobots-themed birthday party, which never happened.
No, it didn't happen over here.
It was all the Gobots gift bags. So, the year 1983. Tonka had gone overseas and retrieved from Bandai all the 600 series machine robos and brought them over here to the United States. She blinded me with science. Was running across the airwaves. Star Wars: Return of the Jedi had lit up the theaters. The game Snake was first introduced on the cell phone Nokia. And Malcolm Fraser was Prime Minister of Australia.
He was. He was
Yes.
indeed.
Yes, he was. Proud member of the Liberal Party,
The Liberal Party.
Liberal Party, if I believe correctly.
We have two main parties, the Liberal and Labour Party, and I guess they are kind of like your Republican Democrat, only a lot more left-wing in both cases.
From Australia, of course. So it was 1983. Gobots had just hit the shelves. A year before Transformers, I might point out. A year before Transformers. Transformers came out in 84. Gobots were first. I don't care what anybody says. Gobots win. And Tonka was looking to cash in on their newfound mega franchise of Gobots.
Yep.
All right, 1983. Gobots had come out across the United States. Why don't you give us a little history, Avon? How did Gobots come to be brought into the United States? What's the relationship there? How did they end up on our story to begin with?
Yeah, so since 1970, Tonka and Bandai did have a relationship. Bandai founded Tonka Japan in 1970 to bring Tonka toys to Japan, and then basically they reversed that relationship with Bandai, utilizing Tonka to distribute their toys, which they failed to get off the line a year earlier in the States as Gobots. They knew from the start that Machine Robo wasn't going to go forever. At least the 600 series, which we know as the small Gobot scale, wasn't going to last forever. They were a limited run thing. Bandai had only ever planned to do 50 or so figures and then call it. So Tonka knew they were on limited time. They also knew that this new mode-changing robot thing was going to be a fad for a bit like video games had been for a bit, and all of a sudden that died, and there was yo-yo craze, and that disappeared and everything else. So they knew they needed to make their money and then get out. So what they did was basically splash the brand around on everything. So as we're about to discuss tonight, stationery, clothing, everything they could possibly put the brand on, they did to make as much money as possible in the short window they knew they had. That's basically what they did. That was their marketing strategy.
And this was a little different from I think Hasbro or Tonka went into it with the idea of, we don't think this is going to be around forever. Let's get our money. Let's get out. Hasbro, on the other hand, came out with the Transformers a year later, and they approached it a little differently. Seemed to approach it from like a premium angle, right? I mean, what's your opinions on the difference between?
Yeah, so there's two different marketing approaches. The way kids watching the cartoon, for example, the Gobots cartoon or whatever, becoming invested with the figures, every kid who could afford a Gobot could afford Leader 1. If you could afford Scooter, you could afford Leader 1. But most kids who could afford Bumblebee couldn't afford Optimus Prime. So whereas Bandai and Tonka took the same approach, all of the figures were basically the same price. Hasbro, Takara went for the premium figures are going to cost more. These are the ones we're going to make the impressive figures in the cartoon. They're the ones kids are going to want. Therefore, they're going to be the premium price. So there was this scale of affordability with kids in the schoolyard saying, oh, Jimmy's got Prime. I want that. Screams to their parents, so they get that for Christmas if they can. Hasbro also splashed the brand around, but nowhere near to the same degree. And obviously, once Hasbro started designing their own Transformers in-house, once Takara had run out of their old models, they were able to perpetuate their brand and keep going, and eventually did win out over Tonka. It's honestly not known whether... People say that Hasbro smashed Tonka in the changing robots market. But basically all Tonka did was take the toys that Bandai gave them, stuck them on a card and distributed them. So as to who made the most money out of them, out of that first lot of Takara or Bandai figures for the effort put in, that's still unknown. Eventually, obviously, Hasbro took over Tonka, but in that little window of how much money they made, unsure.
Right, and I mean, clearly Hasbro kind of approached it from a more long-term premium approach, and Tonka just kind of was. I mean, it was as you put it, was cash grab. I mean, they weren't making $20 on every figure; they were making $2.
Make bank and bail.
That's right. All right, that sounds like a song. Sounds like some sort of '90s hip hop song. Make bank and bail. I think I might get trouble for saying that one. All right, anyway, so going back, pause, and no, so Hasbro did the more premium, and now we're done talking about Transformers because screw the Transformers, yeah. All right, so Tonka, unlike Hasbro, Tonka was advertising all over the place, right? I mean, they were advertising everywhere. Come buy our brand, slap your crap, slap our sticker on your crap, and get it out the door, right? I mean, little background there.
Yeah, so the prime example of this would be Gordy International. They're a globally known company. I believe they're in the US. Hosted in the US. And they are the company in the 80s and I think 90s that you went to. If you wanted a previously used product, whether it was a squirt gun, some sunglasses, any old garbage that had a spot like this on it with a flat area, they would then put your logo on it and they would sell you crap, as you say. And that's where, if you went to a fair or a carnival and you bought a show bag and it had all this junky stuff in it, that was, Thundercats or whatever, it was Gordy International. And you've like Silly Putty, not the actual branded Silly Putty, but the off-brand Silly Putty, not so Silly Putty. Just anything. It was usually made by this company, Gordy International, or at least sold by them.
Games with
the ball bearings in them.
Yep, the ball bearings that flicked around, all that garbage that was sent out there. They did produce one really terribly awesome, and we'll put it right here, terribly awesome piece, that stupid, they were the ones that made that racing game, right? The Gobots racing game, wasn't that Gordy International?
With a bit of paper.
With a bit of paper that's like, it's got like two scenes, and you just scroll the character back and forth. It's the worst.
It doesn't crash into anything. And the funny thing is, they released a Batman version of that. I think a Scooby-Doo one. Don't quote me. A bunch of other franchises, possibly a Flintstones one. I could be wrong. But they released a handful of different franchise and stuff on this crappy game. It's absolutely horrendous.
Did they even change out the little character that moved back and forth? I think it was
The character they did, yeah, but I'm not sure about the background. But it's just a piece of paper that scrolled around. I don't believe there was anything you could actually crash into. You could.
You just moved it back and forth, and it was like, this is fun. I mean, and granted, it was the 80s, so
No. Yeah, it wasn't that bad. I'm thinking of Tommy's little wind-up one they did, the Pocket Pals or whatever. Yeah.
We had the Atari.
It was a lot better. At least you could crash into something.
That's right. This one could crash into anything. It was a stupid thing. When I found that thing for the first time, I was like, I have to own this forever.
So we've got companies like Decca, I'm not sure how you pronounce it in the US, Decca maybe, who did a lot of food items. When I say food items, they're things you eat food out of. And I'm just going to grab this sort of thing. Cups, bowls, plates. If you're in the 80s and you ate your cereal out of this in the morning watching Gobots, you were probably fairly happy. That sort of stuff. Lunch boxes, and Decca were big on that. So they made a lot of, I think they did cutlery. But yeah, let's call it kitchenware. They did a lot of that sort of thing.
They made a real big effort, too, when switching over from Machine Men to Gobots, too, clearly.
I was trying to hide the logo. I was like, let's make it Gobots relevant. But yes, obviously Australia, Machine Men. But otherwise, it's exactly the same Decca branding.
Everything's the same except for the Machine Men. So, I mean, you start with like, it's my birthday party. I'm going to have a Gobots birthday party. And obviously Decca was there to support
because I've got no friends.
Hallmark.
Yeah.
Hallmark was there. They were going to make they had the wrapping paper that you could buy.
Did they do the tablecloth as well?
One of those companies did the tablecloth. Yeah, there was the tablecloth. There was, it's basically, and anyone who is from the 80s, and I don't know that they even do this anymore, but everybody who's from the 80s remembers that birthday display, right? We all had that birthday display of tablecloth.
We had a different birthday.
Well, that's true. That's true.
but I'm not going to judge. But yes, you get the birthday display where that you've got the gift bags that are Gobots themed. They did everything. They did the invites, the gift bags, the birthday cards, the tablecloth, the cake toppers. God, what else was there? Everything. You could have made it. Oh, and costumes, because you had your masks and your costumes. There was things like drawing mats, so kids can play on the drawing mat. They just did everything. They really did.
I remember being a kid in 1984 and getting judged so hard for my Gobots birthday party that I had.
You had a Gobots birthday party.
I did, 1984.
This is new to me. I didn't know this. I'll make sure I interrogate you later.
Well, I literally just found the picture the other day, and it brought like traumatic. I was kind of like brought traumatic trauma back to my mind of like, oh my god, I remember being beat up by the kids at the Gobot birthday party. No, I didn't get beat up. It was kind of like, where's Optimus Prime? I was like, screw Optimus Prime.
Screw the Transformers. I'm starting to get a whole lot more empathy for the intro now.
That's right. Screw the Transformers. I said I wouldn't mention them again, damn it.
Screw Tony, he beat me up for my birthday party.
Screw Tony. Screw Todd from accounting. Let's talk Monogram. Monogram came out with some wonderful
tat.
They were like the pencils and the markers and stuff,
Monogram are a weird company. Depending where you know Monogram from, if you say to someone, oh yes, the company Monogram, some people will say stationery, whereas some people will say model kits, or some people will say, something else. They seem to diversify, but people only know them from one thing, unless you come at them from Gobots, and then you saw them do everything. That leads us into Golden as well, who did a lot of crossover with the stationery. So they also did notepads, books, pens, erasers, colouring books, story books, all about the books. Puzzles. I can't remember who. K-Tel. K-Tel did some of the books with records. The books came with the records or the cassette tapes, which were the read-along, turn the page when you hear the Screams of Torment, book and story.
What's interesting about a lot of this stuff, too, is that, so, I mean, the original GoBots line came out in 1983. On September 8th, 1984, the GoBots cartoon debuted in the U.S.
Yes.
So there is, when you're getting the Nobots stuff, you will find that there is almost like a line in the sand between when all of the merch was based off of the toys, and then when all the merch starts being based off of the cartoon. Right? I mean, we saw that with the Golden Books, some of the Golden Puzzles. There's a lot of stuff that you can actually pick out. Like, oh, that's not the right looking Psykill, or that's not the right looking Zod. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So,
and there was also and I must admit, in Australia I didn't see that, but looking at examples from the US over the period of research, you get that lead up to before Challenge of the GoBots, and a lot of the artwork for colouring books and things like that definitely isn't related to the cartoon, sorry. And it'll be stock artwork, or it'll be even some artwork from Bandai, or it'll be one-off artwork which really didn't match anything. And then you're dead right. All of a sudden, the marketing powerhouse that is an 80s cartoon came out, and everything had to align.
So then we had other companies come in. I mean, there's just so many companies that produce stuff, and most of them produce like just that sticker swap crap, you know. But it seems like each one of the companies put a little bit of time into tooling one or two like really unique looking things. Like Avalon, they put out those the light catchers, you know, which were such an 80s staple. But
that was like it's a LED light kit for anyone who's like not, you know, under 30. It was LED in a LED light shape, like a stained glass window that you put glass in, and in coloured glass, and stuck in the oven and baked it and stank the whole house out. And then you ended up with a GoBots shape dangling LED light kit.
You heard that right, kids. We all played with LED.
Quite a bit.
We didn't kind of play with LED. We played with LED.
We played with LED a lot. Yeah.
In case you're wondering why all us Gen X's are a little wackadoo, it was the LED light kits.
Yeah, it was the LED light kits from GoBots.
Spectra kites come out with all the really cool...
Spectra did. Yeah.
They did the big
kites. Windsock.
Yeah, the stupid windsock. What the... It's astounding to me that some of this stuff even survived to 2000.
You know, I saw the windsock and I thought, that's crap. Who's going to want to stick that in their yard? And look, it's just a tube with some clear plastic on it, and it's got... But then the picture of it is a kid on one of those dragster bikes from the 80s that was so sick, with a stick, and he's got this windsock off the back of his bike, and he's tooling around like he's the business. And I thought, fair enough. GoBots windsock. Stick it all together in that little picture, and perfect.
Three-wheeler with the little flag on the back. And you could, at that time, have the GoBots big wheel, too, if you really wanted to have the GoBots big wheel with the windsock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I would have thought I was cool. No one else would have thought I was cool.
GoBots birthday party. Yeah. No, there is so much of it. And there is so much of it that, because it was so easy to make, there's one called the Data Keeper or something. It is just a notepad. It's a notepad with a pencil. It's GoBots Data Keeper. It's just a notepad. That's it. And then they'll do the same thing with 12 different GoBots on the front cardboard cover. And so there's 12 of them now. It's like, what are you doing? Who bought that many?
And then, of course, you have the clothing, the hats. There's a great GoBot hat that's so 1980s it's not even funny. But the fact that any of that survived to 2023 is what blows my mind. Like the little kid's shirt, like who saved the GoBots kids T-shirt? Wow.
And the sneakers, they're fantastic. The sneakers, the flip-flops, there was a magnets, stickers, the clay molding kit.
The clay molding kit.
From Dust.
With variants. It had variants.
With variants, yeah. What else? I've made some notes. Magazines, transfers, the crappy glider thing. The camera.
I'll put that right here.
The crappy camera. And Machine Man camera, because, you've got to be regional.
You got to have both. And actually, that brings us up, and we're gonna end this show a little differently. We're gonna cut right here.
This is a natural thing.
Because this is part one of our show, right? Part one is, let's just talk about the myriad of Nobots. Is there anything you want to say to end part one of the Nobots episode?
No.